ask you something specific about your weekend. You wake up with a list of things to do. Reasonable things. Maybe it's fixing that leak in the sink, answering 3 emails, or finally going to the gym. You have the time, you have the ability, but then you sit down on the edge of the bed and you simply don't move. Minutes turn into hours. You might pick up your phone, scrolling without really seeing, or you might just stare at a spot on the wall. Your mind is screaming at you to get up, shouting commands, listing consequences, pleading with your limbs to cooperate. Just stand up, you say to yourself. Just walk to the kitchen. But your body feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. It is a terrifying, heavy silence. You aren't relaxing. You aren't resting. You are frozen. Do you remember what it felt like before this heaviness set in? Think back to when you were 7 or 8 years old. There was a direct line between impulse and action. You saw a tree, you climbed it. You felt the rain, you ran into it. There was a lightness to your agency, a seamless flow between your will and your body. Now, that flow feels severed. And the tragedy is, you look at your life today, perhaps you have the career, the house, the family, and you wonder why the simple act of living feels like dragging a corpse through wet cement. This is not laziness. This is not a lack of discipline, and it is certainly not a character flaw. This is a biological safety mechanism that has outlived its expiration date. You are stuck in what psychologists call the functional freeze, the very dissociation that once allowed you to survive a chaotic environment or emotional neglect as a child by making you quiet, small, and numb is now the exact mechanism sabotaging your life as an adult. You learned to freeze to stay safe, but now you are freezing to keep from living. To understand why you cannot move, we must strip away the label of procrastination and look at the architecture of your nervous system. Imagine your body is a high-performance sports car. For most of your life, you have been slamming on the gas pedal. This is your drive, your anxiety, your need to achieve and please. But simultaneously, you are slamming on the brakes. The engine is roaring, the heat is rising, the internal vibration is intense, but the car isn't moving an inch. To the outside observer, you look still, lazy even, but inside, you are burning out your engine. This state creates a unique physiological profile defined by 3 key psychological concepts. The dorsal vagal shutdown. In polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, our nervous system has a hierarchy of responses. When we face stress, we usually go into fight or flight, mobilization. But if the stress is chronic, inescapable, or overwhelming, like growing up in a home where you had to walk on eggshells for years, your body realizes fighting is useless. So it drops down into the oldest evolutionary defense we have, the dorsal vagal state. This is the shutdown. It is the reptilian instinct to play dead, so the predator loses interest. When you can't get off the couch to do the dishes, you aren't being lazy. Your body has misidentified doing the dishes as a threat to your energy reserves, and it has pulled the emergency brake to conserve resources for a danger that isn't there. The window of tolerance collapse. Every human being has a window of tolerance, a zone of arousal where we can function, handle stress, and feel emotions without falling apart. For most adults, this window is wide enough to handle a bad commute or a difficult email. However, for those dealing with functional freeze, that window has shrunk to the size of a coin hole. Your nervous system has been rewired by years of hyper-independence or parentification, being the strong one who never needed help. Because you spent decades operating outside your window of tolerance, absorbing everyone else's chaos, your brain has decided that any demand, even a small one, is too much. The freeze is your brain slamming the window shut to prevent a total psychotic break. High-functioning dissociation. This is perhaps the most insidious element. You might still be going to work, you might still be cooking dinner, but you are not there. You are operating on autopilot, a ghost in your own machine. This dissociation creates a disconnect between your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and logic, and your limbic system, the emotional center. You can logically know you need to move, prefrontal cortex, but the limbic system has cut the wire to the engine. You are a CEO locked out of the control room. You aren't refusing to move because you don't care. You're not moving because your body believes that stillness is the only fortress you have left. The tragedy of the functional freeze is not that you are incapable of moving. It is that you are incapable of feeling while you move. You have likely spent decades perfecting the art of appearing fine. You go to the grocery store, you smile at colleagues, you attend the family dinners, but there is a glass wall between you and the rest of the world. You are watching your life happen from a distance, like a movie playing in another room. This is the profound emotional cost of being the exhausted sentinel. You survived your past by turning yourself into stone. Stone is safe. Stone feels no pain. Stone cannot be hurt by neglected needs or chaotic environments. But stone also cannot feel the warmth of the sun. It cannot dance. It cannot be intimate. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, famously noted that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For you, accepting yourself means accepting a backlog of grief that you have been holding back for 20 or 30 years. The reason you cannot just relax is because your nervous system knows that if you truly let go, if you truly stopped holding up the ceiling, you might collapse into a grief so deep you fear you'd never come out of it. So you stay in the freeze. It is a purgatory of your own making. You have sacrificed authenticity for predictability. You learned early on that being real, showing your anger, your sadness, your exhaustion was dangerous. It caused conflict or it caused abandonment. So you amputated those parts of yourself. Now, as an adult, you are left with a lingering, haunting sense of being a fraud. You feel a phantom limb pain for the person you were supposed to be. You look at your life and think, I built all of this, but I do not inhabit it. This is the weight of the unlived life. The exhaustion you feel isn't physical tiredness. It is the spiritual fatigue of wearing a mask that weighs heavier with every passing year. How does a child who learned to freeze turn into an adult navigating the modern world? It manifests in specific, confusing behaviors that you have likely mistaken for your personality. Let's be clear. These are not personality traits. These are survival adaptations that have become maladaptive habits. The sprint and crash work cycle. You oscillate between periods of hyperproductivity and total paralysis. Because you cannot regulate your energy moderately, you work in manic bursts driven by adrenaline and the fear of failure. You are the hero employee for 3 weeks, and then you hit a wall of numbness where you cannot answer a single email for 3 days. You don't know how to work, you only know how to war. Revenge bedtime procrastination. At night, when the demands of the world finally cease, you refuse to sleep. You stay up until 2 a.m. scrolling, watching, or just sitting. Why? Because the nighttime is the only time nobody wants anything from you. Your freeze response lifts just enough for you to reclaim a tiny slice of agency, even if it destroys your energy for the next day. The phantom partner in relationships. In romance, you are physically present, but emotionally unreachable. When conflict arises, you don't yell and you don't leave. You check out. You stare blankly while your partner begs for a reaction. You retreat into your citadel. You want connection desperately, but the moment intimacy feels demanding, your body slams the heavy iron gates shut to protect your soft interior. The fawn response and resentment. You say yes instantly because your body registers no as unsafe. You agree to the extra project, the family gathering, the favor. But because you didn't actually want to do it, you perform the task with a simmering, low-grade resentment. You become a martyr who hates the people you are helping, which only fuels your shame loop. The doom pile phenomenon. Your physical environment reflects your internal freeze. There are piles of laundry you've walked past for a week. There are unopened letters. These aren't just messes, they are monuments of overwhelmedness. Looking at them triggers shame, which triggers more freeze, creating a self-sustaining cycle of paralysis. Imposter syndrome and hypervigilance. You are constantly scanning the room for shifts in mood, tone, or energy. You are an expert at reading other people's emotional weather while being completely cut off from your own. You feel like a fraud because you know that the calm, competent exterior you present is held together by duct tape and sheer willpower. If you see yourself in this list, your instinct is likely to judge yourself. Why am I like this? I need to fix this now. Stop. That urgency is just another form of the fight response. The path out of the freeze is not force. You cannot beat a frozen muscle into relaxing. You cannot scream at a terrified nervous system to calm down. The first step is simply witnessing. It is shifting from I am lazy to I am currently in a freeze response because my body perceives a threat. It is separating who you are from what your body is doing. So, how do we thaw? You cannot beat a freeze response into submission. You cannot hate yourself into a version of yourself that you can love. If you attack the exhausted sentinel within you, if you scream at yourself to just get up, you are only proving to your nervous system that the environment is still hostile. You are confirming the sentinel's belief that it is not safe to let your guard down. You are adding the threat of internal abuse to the threat of external pressure. And so, the sentinel will only lock the doors tighter. Healing functional freeze is not about force. It is about safety. It is about convincing your biological operating system, cell by cell, that the war is over. This is not a quick fix. It is a slow, tender negotiation with your own biology. Here is the path of the thaw. The physiology of glimmers. We must start with the body, not the mind. You cannot think your way out of a freeze because the freeze lives in the brainstem below the reach of logic. You need to introduce what Deb Dana, a clinician in polyvagal theory, calls glimmers. These are micro moments of safety that tell your vagus nerve it can downregulate. Orientation. When you feel the paralysis setting in, do not close your eyes. Instead, slowly turn your head and look around the room. Name 3 things you see. Notice the texture of the chair beneath you. Feel the gravity holding your feet to the floor. This sounds trivially simple, but it is profound. You are sending a signal from your eyes to your brainstem. Look, there is no tiger here. There is no shouting parent here. There is no crisis. You are manually overriding the alarm system. The art of titration. The frozen nervous system is terrified of overwhelm. Big goals like cleaning the whole house or writing the whole report are interpreted as threats. We must use the psychological principle of titration. In chemistry, titration is the process of adding a reactive agent drop by drop to avoid an explosion. You must do the same with your life. Lower the bar until it is so low you cannot fail. If you cannot do the dishes, can you stand in the kitchen for 1 minute? If you cannot write the email, can you open the laptop and look at the screen? If you cannot go to the gym, can you put on your socks? Negotiate with the sentinel. Say to yourself, I am not asking you to run a marathon. I am asking you to wiggle your toes. By completing a microtask, you break the dopamine deprivation loop. You prove to your brain that movement is safe. You are building a staircase out of the pit, 1 pebble at a time. Reparenting the sentinel. This is the emotional core of the work. You must change the dialogue you have with the frozen part of you. Currently, your internal dialogue is likely a tyrant, saying things like, "You're so lazy. Look at everyone else. You're wasting your potential." You must replace the tyrant with the compassionate witness. Close your eyes and imagine that frozen part of you as a child or a tired soldier. They are sitting by the door, holding it shut, terrified of what might get in. Do not scream at them to move. Sit down next to them. Tell them, "I see how hard you are working to protect me. I see that you are frozen because you are scared. Thank you for trying to keep me safe, but I am an adult now. I can handle the email. I can handle the conflict. You can stand down." This is shadow work in practice. It is integrating the parts of you that you have rejected. The lazy part of you is actually the part of you that is desperate for rest. When you stop fighting it and start listening to it, the tension begins to melt. The fear of the thaw. I must warn you, when the ice melts, the water flows. As you begin to come out of functional freeze, you may not feel happy immediately. You may feel rage. You may feel profound sadness. You may feel a level of exhaustion that feels bone deep. This is normal. This is the backlog of emotions you froze to survive. When the numbness leaves, the pain that was preserved underneath it wakes up. Do not let this scare you back into the ice. The poet Rilke wrote, in his Letters to a Young Poet, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. The tears are a sign of life. The anger is a sign of boundaries returning. The exhaustion is your body finally asking for the rest it was denied for 20 years. This is not a regression. It is a recovery. You are not breaking down. You are breaking through." Choosing softness as a strategy. Finally, you must make a philosophical shift. You have spent your life believing that hardness equals safety. You believed that if you were rigid, perfectionistic, and hyper-controlled, you could prevent disaster. But rigidity is brittle. It breaks under pressure. Softness is resilient. Water is soft, yet it carves through canyons. Grass is soft, yet it survives the storm that snaps the oak tree. You are invited now to build a life based not on how much you can endure, but on how much you can enjoy. You are invited to dismantle the fortress and build a garden. A garden requires care, yes, but it does not require a sentinel. If you are watching this and feeling the weight of the functional freeze, I want you to know that you are not broken. You are a survivor who is still wearing armor for a war that ended a long time ago. Your body is not your enemy. It has been your most loyal protector, holding the line when you were too small to fight back. But the time has come to thank the sentinel, relieve them of their duty, and slowly, gently unlock the door. There is a life waiting for you on the other side of that door. A life where you don't just survive the day, but actually inhabit it. A life where you are not dragging yourself through the cement, but walking, light and present on solid ground. Take your time. The ice didn't form in a day, and it won't melt in an hour. But every deep breath, every moment of compassion, and every small step is a ray of sun. And eventually, spring always comes. If this speaks to the silence you've been living in, let me know in the comments. Share your story of the freeze. We are building a community here of people who are choosing to wake up. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to walk this road with us. Be gentle with yourself tonight.